Two thugs on a Chicago bus thought they could bully a terrified nurse without consequence. Then they made the fatal mistake of kicking the quiet German shepherd sitting nearby. They didn't realize the dog belonged to Caleb, a Navy SEAL. Caleb took them down in seconds, but he had no idea that this simple act of justice would drag him into a much bigger, deadlier war. The wind whipping off Lake Michigan carried a biting chill. It seemed to ignore the layers of clothing Caleb Thorne wore, a frigid reminder that he was back in Chicago. It was a gray, steel-cold afternoon in late November. The kind of day where the sky and the concrete skyline seemed to merge into a single, oppressive sheet of slate. Caleb, a 32-year-old Navy SEAL currently on a mandatory leave he hadn't asked for, stood on the cracked pavement. He was a man of imposing physical stature, standing well over 6 feet, with a build that suggested coiled power. Yet his demeanor was intensely quiet. His face was weathered slightly by sun and sand from deployments far from this frozen city. He bore a short, well-groomed beard, and eyes the color of flint scanned the street with habitual vigilance. Beside him sat Titan, a large, sable-coated German shepherd with a thick leather collar. Titan was not merely a pet. He was a retired military working dog with a notched ear and a discipline that matched his handlers, sitting perfectly still despite the biting wind, his golden eyes tracking the passing traffic. They were stranded. Caleb's reliable pickup truck had suffered a catastrophic radiator failure 3 miles back, forcing them onto public transit to reach his brother's apartment downtown. The bus arrived with a groan of hydraulics and a squeal of brakes. The doors hissed open to reveal a blast of stale, heated air. The driver, a heavy-set man with weary eyes and a name tag that read Gus, looked skeptically at the large dog. "You got a ticket for that beast?" Gus asked, his hand hovering over the door lever. Caleb didn't blink, reaching into his pocket to flash his military identification. "Service animal?" Caleb said, his voice a low, gravelly baritone that brokered no argument. "He's cleaner than most people," Gus grunted, too tired to argue with a man who looked like he could dismantle the fare box with his bare hands. "Fair enough. Just keep him out of the aisle. I don't need a lawsuit today." Caleb nodded his thanks and moved to the rear of the bus. His movements were fluid, efficient, signaling Titan to heel close to his leg. They took a seat near the back exit. Caleb positioned himself so he had a clear view of the entire interior. The bus was sparsely populated. Across the aisle sat a young woman who looked like she hadn't slept in 2 days. She was Maya Lynn, a medical student in her mid-20s, dark curly hair tied back in a messy bun, wearing light blue scrubs under a heavy winter coat. Her head was leaning against the vibrating window, eyes closed. Caleb watched her for a moment before the bus lurched to a halt at the next stop. 2 young men boarded, bringing a gust of noise and chaotic energy with them. The first Titch was wiry and agitated, wearing a flashy, oversized jacket. Trailing him was Tank, a towering hulk of a man in a dark hoodie. "Man, it is brick out there!" Titch shouted, slapping his hands together as he bypassed the fare box. "Hey, driver, crank the heat up, will you? We're freezing back here." Gus sighed but said nothing, focusing on the road. The 2 thugs moved to the back, their eyes scanning for entertainment. They spotted Maya. Titch slid into the seat directly behind her, leaning forward. "Hey, sleeping beauty," Titch said, his voice loud, mocking. "You miss your stop, or are you just waiting for me?" Maya's eyes snapped open, startled. She pulled her coat tighter, shifting her body toward the window. "I'm fine, thanks," she murmured, her voice tight with exhaustion. "Just leave me alone." Titch laughed, looking at Tank for validation. "Leave you alone? I'm just being polite. You look like you need a friend." Doesn't she look lonely, Tank? Tank grunted, looming over the aisle. Yeah, lonely. Titch reached out, flicking the back of her hair. You a nurse or something? You think you're better than us 'cause you got a job? Maya swatted his hand away, turning to face him. Don't touch me, she said, louder this time. I asked you nicely. Ooh, she's got claws, Titch jeered, standing up to block her path. I like that. Come on, give me a smile. Just one smile and we'll leave you alone. Isn't that a fair trade? The tension on the bus was suffocating. People stared at their phones, terrified of intervening. Caleb felt the familiar cold tightening in his chest. He turned his head slowly. She said she's not interested, Caleb said. His voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the noise of the bus like a razor blade. Titch froze, then slowly turned his head to look at Caleb. Excuse me? Titch sneered, stepping into the aisle to face the soldier. I don't remember asking the peanut gallery. You got a problem, mountain man? No problem, Caleb replied evenly, his hand resting lightly on Titan's neck to keep the dog steady. Just seems like the lady wants a quiet ride. We all do. Titch scoffed, looking Caleb up and down, trying to find a weakness. You think you're tough 'cause you got a beard and a flannel shirt? Titch taunted, stepping closer. You look like a lumberjack who got lost. Tank stepped up beside Titch, looking at Titan. The dog let out a low, vibrating growl. I hate dogs, Tank rumbled, his voice thick and dull. Especially ugly ones. Caleb's eyes narrowed slightly. He's not bothering you. Step back. Or what? Titch challenged, pumped full of adrenaline and bravado. You gonna sick your mutt on us? I bet I can kick that dog's teeth in before he even moves. Tank took this as a command. Let's see, the giant said. He drew his heavy steel-toed boot back, aiming directly at Titan's ribs. No! Maya shouted from her seat, but the boot was already moving. Caleb didn't shout. He didn't hesitate. He simply acted. Caleb rose from his seat in a blur of motion. His left hand shot out, snatching Tank's kicking leg out of the air with a grip like an iron vise. Bad idea, Caleb whispered. In one fluid motion, he drove a palm strike into the giant's solar plexus, while twisting the captured leg. Tank made a choking sound as the air left his lungs, and Caleb swept his standing leg out from under him. The giant crashed to the metal floor with a bone-shaking thud. Titch shrieked, fumbling for a pocket knife. You crazy freak! He yelled. Caleb didn't even look at the weapon. He pivoted, grabbing Titch by the collar and the belt, and slammed him into the empty plastic seat opposite him. Caleb pinned Titch there with a forearm against the throat, applying just enough pressure to terrify him without crushing the windpipe. We're gonna have a quiet ride now, Caleb said, his face inches from Titch's. Do you understand? Titch's eyes were bulging, his hands scrabbling uselessly at Caleb's arm. Okay, man, I get it, I can't breathe. Caleb eased the pressure slightly. And you're going to apologize to the lady? Titch nodded frantically. I'm sorry, lady, I'm sorry, just get him off me. Caleb stepped back, releasing him. Titch scrambled up, grabbed the wheezing Tank by the hood, and dragged him toward the back door. Driver, open the door! Titch screamed. Gus slammed on the brakes and popped the exit. The two thugs tumbled out onto the sidewalk, cursing and gasping. Caleb sat back down, adjusting his baseball cap, which hadn't moved an inch during the altercation. He looked at Titan, who was sitting calmly, waiting for a command. Good boy, Caleb murmured. He looked across the aisle. Maya was staring at him, her hands trembling. "Are you okay?" Caleb asked, his voice returning to its quiet baseline. Maya swallowed hard, nodding. I think so. Thank you. You didn't have to do that." Caleb shrugged, looking out the window as the bus began to move again. "I didn't do it for you," he said simply, though his tone wasn't unkind. "I just wanted a quiet ride." He noticed several phones held up in the air a few rows ahead, recording. He pulled the brim of his hat lower. The city of Chicago rolled by outside, cold and indifferent. By the time he and Titan stepped off the bus a few blocks from his brother's apartment complex, the sun had fully set. The wind howled through the concrete canyons. Caleb adjusted his backpack and tightened his grip on Titan's leash, moving with a purposeful stride toward the Spire, a mid-range apartment building that had seen better days. His brother Julian was an investigative journalist. He lived for the story, often at the expense of his own safety, a trait that worried Caleb constantly. Upon entering the lobby, Caleb noticed the security guard was missing. The elevator was out of order, forcing Caleb to take the stairs to the 4th floor. As he climbed, the silence of the building felt heavy, unnatural. When he reached the 4th floor landing, Titan stopped abruptly. The dog's ears swiveled forward, the fur along his spine rising in a jagged ridge. A low, menacing growl rumbled deep in Titan's chest, a warning that Caleb took seriously. Caleb drew a small tactical flashlight from his pocket, clicking it on as he approached apartment 4B. The door was not just unlocked, the frame was splintered around the lock mechanism, pushed inward by brute force. Caleb signaled Titan to stay low, and pushed the door open with his boot, stepping into the darkness. The apartment had been tossed, bookshelves overturned, cushions slashed, papers scattered across the floor like snow. But Caleb's eyes were drawn to the figure lying prone near the kitchen island. It was Julian. Caleb rushed forward, dropping to his knees, his hands instantly checking for a pulse that he knew wouldn't be there. Julian's skin was cold. There were bruises on his face, and a single fatal gunshot wound to the chest. The scene had been staged clumsily to look like a robbery gone wrong, a wallet thrown open, a TV missing. But Caleb saw the precision of the kill. This was an execution. A wave of grief hit Caleb, hot and suffocating. But he shoved it down into a steel box in his mind. He couldn't mourn yet. He had to survive. Before Caleb could process the scene further, heavy footsteps echoed in the hallway. He stood up, hands raised, as 2 uniformed officers and a man in a cheap, ill-fitting suit entered the apartment with guns drawn. "Police! Hands where I can see them!" the suited man barked. This was Detective Graves, a man in his 50s with a paunch and eyes that held a profound, cynical exhaustion. Graves holstered his weapon once he saw Caleb's military ID, but his attitude remained hostile. He walked around the body, stepping carelessly over the scattered papers. "Looks like a junkie break-in," Graves stated flatly. "Kid probably surprised them. Shame. We see this 10 times a week in this district." Caleb stared at the detective, incredulous. "A junkie doesn't shoot center mass with a double tap," Caleb said, his voice trembling with suppressed rage. "And they don't ignore the laptop sitting right there on the desk. This was a hit." Graves scoffed, chewing on a toothpick. "Look, soldier, I know you're grieving, but leave the police work to the police. Your brother had a reputation for poking his nose where it didn't belong." Graves poked a finger into Caleb's chest. "He was a casualty of the city. We're closing this as a robbery homicide. Don't make trouble, now get out!" Forced out of the apartment, Caleb walked into the cold night, his mind racing. He knew Graves was either incompetent or paid off, He needed a lead. He stopped under a flickering streetlight and looked down at Titan. He remembered the package Julian had sent him 2 weeks ago. A care package for the dog. It had contained a new heavy-duty tactical collar, which Titan was wearing right now. The note had been cryptic. For the heavy loads, keep it close to your chest. Caleb knelt, examining the collar, running his fingers along the thick nylon stitching of the interior padding. He felt a small, hard lump. Using a small pocket knife, he carefully sliced the seam. A black micro SD card slid into his palm. Julian hadn't just sent a gift. He had sent the evidence. Caleb found a 24-hour internet cafe called the Neon Spider. He paid cash for a private booth in the back. He inserted the card into the computer. The drive was encrypted, but the password was simple. Julian's childhood nickname for Caleb. The files opened. It wasn't just a story. It was a dossier. The header read, Project Ares. Photographs, shipping manifests, and emails flooded the screen. They detailed a massive illegal operation run by Iron Corp, a private military contractor supposed to be providing security for relief efforts. Instead, they were smuggling military-grade weapons into the city to sell to cartels. Caleb was so engrossed that he almost missed the reflection in the dark monitor screen. Outside the cafe window, a black SUV had pulled up silently. 3 men got out. They moved with the synchronized precision of a tactical team. The leader, a man named Bishop, signaled to the others to flank the entrance. Caleb ripped the SD card from the computer. "Titan, heel," he commanded, his voice low and urgent. The front glass of the internet cafe shattered inward as the first suppressed shot took out the monitor. Panic erupted. Caleb didn't freeze. He grabbed a heavy fire extinguisher and hurled it through the back emergency exit, creating a diversion, then sprinted toward the kitchen area, Titan sticking to his side like a shadow. Gunfire chewed up the drywall behind them. They were hunting him. Julian had been killed for this. And now the crosshairs were on Caleb. He burst out into the alleyway, the cold air hitting his face, but there was no time to breathe. He had the truth in his pocket, and an army of mercenaries on his heels. The silent guardian had just become the prey. Caleb leaned heavily against the brick wall of a dumpster enclosure. The graze on his left shoulder burned with a white-hot intensity. It wasn't life-threatening, but it was bleeding freely, soaking the sleeve of his flannel shirt. Beside him, Titan paced in a tight circle, his ears swiveling like radar dishes. Caleb checked his watch. He had been running for 20 minutes. He needed medical supplies, but he couldn't walk into an emergency room. A gunshot wound would trigger a police report, and Caleb knew Detective Graves and the Chicago PD were compromised. His mind flashed back to the bus ride, to the blue scrubs. Maya Lynn. St. Jude's Medical Center. It was a gamble, but Caleb was out of options. St. Jude's was only 6 blocks away. He tightened the improvised tourniquet he'd made from a strip of his shirt and signaled Titan. They moved through the shadows, avoiding the main thoroughfares. The hospital loomed ahead, a fortress of glass and concrete. Caleb navigated to the delivery bay, slipping in behind a laundry truck. He found the locker rooms near the surgical wing, hoping Maya was still on shift. Luck held out. He slipped into the women's locker room. Maya was there, sitting on a bench with her head in her hands, staring at a phone screen that displayed the viral video of the bus hero. When Caleb stepped into the light, Maya gasped, dropping her phone. She scrambled back, grabbing a can of hairspray as a weapon. "Quiet," Caleb hissed, raising his good hand. "I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm the guy from the bus. Maya froze, recognizing the beard, the piercing eyes, and the German shepherd standing silently by the door. Her gaze dropped to his blood-soaked sleeve. "You're shot," she whispered. "Why are you here? The police are looking for you. They say you killed someone." Caleb grimaced, leaning against the lockers. "I didn't kill anyone. My brother was murdered. The people who did it are trying to kill me, too. I just need a needle and thread. Maya, please." She looked at him for a long moment, searching his face for the violence the news reported, but finding only desperation. She lowered the hairspray. "Sit down," she commanded. Maya worked quickly. She cleaned the wound and began stitching the furrowed flesh. "His name was Julian," Caleb said quietly. "He was a journalist." Maya's hands paused. "Julian Thorne? The freelance writer?" Caleb nodded. Maya swallowed hard. "I saw him," she murmured. 2 days ago. He was in the cafeteria downstairs. He was arguing with someone. He looked terrified." Caleb grabbed her wrist gently. "Who was he with, Maya? Think." "A man, older, bald. He had a tattoo on his neck. A cobra with a knife through it." Caleb's blood ran cold. The cobra tattoo was the insignia of a specific elite unit within Iron Corp's Wetwork Division. "That man," Caleb said, "is named Bishop. He's the one hunting me." Before Maya could respond, the hospital's PA system chimed. "Code Silver. Lockdown in effect. All personnel remain in your designated areas." Titan stood up, a low growl rumbling in his throat. "They're here," Caleb said. "Probably facial recognition on the street cameras." In the security control room, Bishop stood behind the terrified head of security. "There." Bishop pointed to a camera feed. "Sector 4, seal the exits. I want my team on every stairwell. No witnesses. The woman is with him. She's a loose end. Clean it up." Back in the locker room, Caleb grabbed Maya's arm. "We have to move. If you stay here, they'll kill you for helping me." Maya looked at the door, then back at Caleb. "The loading dock," she said breathlessly. "There's a trash chute that bypasses the security doors." Caleb nodded. "Titan, lead." They burst into the hallway just as the elevator doors dinged open. 2 men in SWAT gear stepped out. "Contact!" one yelled. Caleb shoved Maya behind a linen cart and kicked it down the hall toward the shooters. As the cart rattled forward, Caleb gave a sharp whistle. Titan launched himself like a missile. The dog hit the first mercenary in the chest, knocking him backward into his partner. Caleb sprinted forward. Using the confusion to close the distance, he tackled the second man, disarming him and delivering a knockout blow. He whistled again, and Titan released the first man. "Leave him," Caleb ordered. "Go!" They reached the laundry room. Maya unlocked the heavy service door. "It's a drop," she warned, "into the dumpster." "Trust me," Caleb said. He helped her climb into the chute, then tossed Titan down before sliding in himself. They landed in a pile of linens in a large dumpster. The air was freezing, but they were outside the perimeter. "Can you drive?" Caleb asked, nodding toward a hospital delivery van with the keys still in the ignition. Maya nodded. "Yes." "Get in. Keep your head down." Caleb vaulted into the passenger seat, Titan scrambling into the back. As Maya gunned the engine, the mercenaries at the gate realized what was happening. Caleb floored the accelerator. The van roared, smashing through the wooden arm of the gate and clipping a black SUV. They sped out onto the icy streets, disappearing into the traffic of the Chicago night. The stolen van rattled as it bounced over the frozen ruts of an access road on the desolate southern edge of Lake Michigan. Caleb directed her to a dilapidated structure known as the Foundry, a massive, hollowed-out relic of the industrial age. This had been an unofficial training ground for his SEAL team years ago. Caleb killed the engine. The silence that rushed in was heavy and cold. "We stay here for a few hours," Caleb said. "It's off the grid." They settled into a small enclosed office on a mezzanine level. Maya checked the dressing on his shoulder. "You're used to this," she said. "The violence, the running." "You never get used to running," he replied. "But you learn to function inside it." "Julian was the good one," Caleb admitted. "I was the one who broke things. Julian wanted to fix them. He thought the truth was enough to save people. He was naive, but he was better than me." Maya shook her head slowly. "I'm a surgeon, Caleb. I spend my life trying to keep people from dying. But tonight, realized there are things surgery can't fix. I felt helpless." Caleb turned to her. "Then stop being helpless. You're a target now, Maya. As long as you're with me, you're in the war." He stood up and pulled a Sig Sauer P2126 pistol from his waistband. "It's not a scalpel," Caleb said. "Point, squeeze, don't hesitate." He spent the next hour teaching her the basics. Their respite was cut short. Titan lifted his head. His ears swiveled. Caleb killed the lantern instantly. "How many?" he whispered to the dog. Titan gave 2 sharp barks, a pause, then another. 3 distinct groups. "Stay here," Caleb breathed. He slipped a pair of panoramic night vision goggles over his eyes. He slipped over the railing, dropping silently to the concrete floor below. The team of mercenaries was led by a man named Viper. "Fan out!" Viper barked. "Sterling wants them alive for questioning, but if the dog gives you trouble, put it down." Caleb reached the main breaker box. With a savage yank, he pulled the master lever. The warehouse was plunged into absolute pitch-black darkness. "Lights! Cut the lights!" Viper yelled. "Switch to thermal!" But before they could adjust, the hunt began. Caleb moved with the terrifying speed of a predator. He took out the straggler first. One down. Across the room, Titan barked to disorient the squad. 2 mercenaries moved toward the sound, isolating themselves. Caleb was waiting. He dropped from a forklift, taking them both out with brutal efficiency. Panic began to set in among the remaining men. "Regroup!" Viper screamed. Titan launched himself from the darkness, slamming into a mercenary's arm. Caleb used the distraction to close in on Viper. He disarmed the squad leader and delivered a spinning elbow strike to the temple. Silence returned to the warehouse. Caleb retrieved a radio from Viper's vest. "Status, Viper. Report." It was Bishop's voice. Caleb keyed the mic. "Your men are done. Come send the next batch." He crushed the radio. Caleb dragged Viper into the small office. "The shipment," Caleb said, his voice a low rumble. "Project Ares. Where is it going and when?" Viper spat blood. "You're dead, SEAL. Marcus Sterling will burn this whole city to find you." Caleb pressed his thumb into a pressure point on Viper's shoulder. Viper arched his back, gasping. "The tower!" he choked out. "Iron Corp HQ. The penthouse helipad. The shipment moves in 2 hours." Caleb released him. He had the location. But before they moved, Caleb needed to make a call. He dialed a number that didn't exist in any public directory. "This line is dead," a gruff voice answered. "It's Caleb. I need an extraction breaker. I've got a civilian and intel on a domestic terror operation." Major Knox call sign. Breaker sighed. "Caleb, listen to me carefully. Drop the phone. Walk away. The agency is compromised. Iron Corp has insiders everywhere." If I send a team, they won't be coming to rescue you. They'll be coming to sanitize the scene. They killed Julian, Breaker. I know, son, but I can't stop it. If you go after Sterling, you're on your own. The line went dead. Caleb crushed the phone under his boot. He was truly alone. We're leaving, he told Maya. He drove to a secluded motel called the Blue Voyager. You stay here, Caleb ordered. Lock the door.
Do not open it for anyone but me or Titan. You're going to the tower, Maya said. That's suicide. I have to stop that shipment. He knelt down and looked Titan in the eye. Watch her, he commanded. The dog whined low, but sat down next to Maya. If I'm not back in 4 hours, Caleb said, run. Don't look back. Caleb moved through the city like a ghost, arriving at the Iron Corp Tower just as the snow began to fall harder. He accessed the underground service tunnels, moving through the steam outflow pipes. He emerged on the 68th floor. Slipping past patrols, he ascended to the penthouse. The doors opened into a space that smelled of expensive leather and old money. Standing by the window was Marcus Sterling, CEO of Iron Corp, wearing a bespoke suit, holding a crystal tumbler of scotch. Mr. Thorne, Sterling said, not turning around. You're quieter than your brother. Caleb leveled his pistol at the back of Sterling's head. Turn around, hands where I can see them. Sterling turned slowly, amused. So pedestrian. You think a bullet solves this? It stops you, Caleb growled. Give me the encryption key for the Ares files. Sterling chuckled, sitting at his desk. You won't shoot me, Caleb, because you're a protector. It's your fatal flaw. Sterling tapped a key on his laptop. A monitor on the wall flickered to life. It showed a live feed of the motel room. Maya was pacing, Titan watching the door. How? Caleb whispered. We tracked the van's GPS, Sterling shrugged. I have a second team led by my head of security, Kane, sitting in the parking lot. Put the gun down. Surrender the SD card, and I let the girl live. Or Kane turns that room into a slaughterhouse. Caleb stared at the screen. The gun in his hand felt incredibly heavy. He had been checkmated. Suddenly, the image on the screen flickered. Static. A loop. Sterling's smile widened. You're wondering why she isn't moving. I told you, I'm the architect. Sterling pressed a button. The heavy oak doors to the right groaned open. Kane emerged, a mountain of a man, dragging Maya by her hair. She was bruised, but alive. I tried to follow, she gasped. 2 other guards pushed a heavy steel mesh cage into the room. Inside, Titan was pacing frantically, wearing a heavy shock collar. Every time the dog lunged, a guard pressed a remote, and a blue arc of electricity snapped, forcing Titan to the floor with a yelp. Put the gun down, Sterling commanded, or Kane breaks her neck. Then we cook the dog. Slowly, agonizingly. Caleb lowered the gun. Let them go, Caleb said. You want me. You have me. Sterling laughed. Oh, I want the card, too. And I want you to suffer. He nodded to Kane. Soften him up. Kane released Maya and turned toward Caleb. The giant moved with surprising speed. His fist hit Caleb like a wrecking ball. It wasn't a fight. It was an execution. Blow after blow rained down, turning Caleb's face into a mask of blood. Finally, Kane grabbed Caleb by the throat and slammed him onto his knees in front of Sterling's desk. The card, Caleb, Sterling said. Give it to me. It's in my pocket, Caleb wheezed. Left pocket.
Sterling smirked, reaching into Caleb's jacket. But Caleb wasn't reaching for the card in his mind. He was focusing on the small prototype military signal jammer hidden in his lining. "Closer," Caleb whispered. As Sterling's fingers brushed the fabric, Caleb surged forward, crushing the activation button through his coat. A high-pitched whine pierced the air. The lights in the penthouse died. Electronic locks disengaged, and the remote for the shock collar failed. The magnetic lock on Titan's cage popped open. With a roar like a wolf, Titan burst from the cage. He launched himself across the room, clamping his jaws onto Kane's forearm. Kane roared. Releasing his grip on Caleb, Caleb dropped to the floor. "Titan, sunder!" he screamed, the command to cut. Titan released the arm and lunged at Caleb's bound wrists, his powerful jaws sheared through the plastic zip ties, freeing him. Caleb rolled to his feet. Kane was recovering, pulling a massive combat knife. "This ends now," Caleb snarled. He grabbed a shard of heavy plate glass from the floor. The penthouse was now illuminated only by red emergency strobes. 3 uniformed guards burst in. Caleb moved with terrifying aggression. He took out the first guard with the glass shard, grabbed his submachine gun, and dropped the other 2. "Maya, get down!" Maya huddled behind a sofa. She saw Caleb moving through the room, a silhouette against the flashing red lights, dismantling the mercenaries, but a guard near the entrance pushed himself up, aiming his pistol at Caleb's exposed back. Maya saw it. She grabbed Caleb's discarded Sig Sauer from the floor, her hands shaking. She leveled the weapon and squeezed the trigger. The shot hit the guard in the thigh. He screamed, and Caleb spun around, finishing the threat with a knife throw. He nodded to Maya. Then Kane grabbed Caleb, hurling him across the room. "You're fast, little man," Kane grumbled, "but you break, just like the rest." Caleb stood up, spitting blood. He drove his thumbs into the nerves on Kane's elbow. Kane's arm spasmed. Caleb drove his boot into Kane's knee, hyperextending the joint with a sickening pop. The monster was mortal. Caleb unleashed a flurry of strikes, finally locking Kane in a rear-naked choke. "This is for Julian." He squeezed until the giant went limp. Then, with a violent twist, he snapped Kane's neck. Silence returned. "Go," Caleb told Maya, pointing to the open panic door where the cold wind rushed in. "Barricade the door. Trust Titan." Caleb sprinted up the spiral stairs to the helipad. The sleek black helicopter was already light on its skids. Sterling sat inside, sipping his drink. Thinking he had won, Caleb launched himself from the roof edge. For a terrifying second, he was weightless. Then his hands slammed into the landing skid. The helicopter banked sharply over Lake Michigan. Caleb inched his way to the door. He yanked it open and hauled himself inside. Sterling lunged at him with a fire extinguisher. Caleb deflected it. In the scuffle, they crashed against the pilot's seat. Caleb's boots slammed into the collective lever. The helicopter dropped like a stone, smashing into the freezing water. Darkness engulfed them. Caleb kicked free of the wreckage. His hand closed around Sterling's suit. He dragged the villain to the surface, gasping for air. He hauled Sterling onto the snowy rocks of the shoreline. Suddenly, blue and red strobes cut through the night. Men with FBI emblazoned on their jackets swarmed the scene. Agent Pierce stepped forward. "Caleb Thorne?" Caleb nodded weakly. "We got the upload," Pierce said. "The Ares files. Your brother set a dead man's switch. It decrypted automatically when you accessed it. You're clear, sailor. Sterling is going away for a long time." Caleb let his head drop back onto the snow. The weight was finally gone. 3 months later. The sky over Chicago was a brilliant blue. Caleb stood before a simple granite headstone. Julian Thorne, truth seeker. Caleb looked different. The haunted look was replaced by a quiet sorrow that was healing. Maya slipped her hand into his. He would have liked the view, she said softly. He would have written a story about the grass, Caleb smiled. At his feet, Titan sat majestically, fully healed. Ready to go? Maya asked. Yeah, I'm ready. 6 months later. The sign above the converted warehouse read, Thorne Canine Training and Rehabilitation. Caleb was working with a young dog, using his skills to build something constructive. Maya pulled up in the driveway. She had finished her shift. Caleb whistled. Titan bounded over. Run? She asked. Run, he agreed. They ran along the lakefront path as the sun set. Not as soldiers or survivors, but as a family. And ahead of them, leading the way, was Titan. The silent guardian had finally found his peace.